G'day everyone, Mike here, and welcome to another edition of the Beyond Billables podcast. Wherever you're listening in the world, thanks very much for listening, for subscribing, for being with us on the journey for the last 4.5 years, coming up to 5 years next year. It's amazing. On the show today, I have a great interview with Kristal Naividi. Now, Kristal is the founder of Kristal Lawyers. She's a criminal lawyer and a family lawyer, and she has an amazing story of how she became a lawyer, overcame incredible adversity, and how she has ended up starting her own firm and growing it very, very rapidly. But I'll let Kristal tell that story. On with the show. Kristal, welcome to the Beyond Billables podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you run your own law firm on the Central Coast in Australia. I would love to start to talk about your journey in the law, though, really at the outset, because you've got an amazing story. So why did you become a lawyer in the first place?
Yeah, so I've been admitted in about 10 years now. So it has been a little bit of a journey to get here. I had an interesting upbringing. I was brought up in, housing commission. And so early on in life, I was exposed to, things that perhaps children shouldn't have seen. But that then also gave me some insights into the criminal justice system. I just had a real passion for the law, and I found it quite fascinating. So, I decided that I would pursue law, although it probably wasn't a linear path compared to others.
How did you go from that background, I guess, to getting the results to actually getting into law school in the first place? Because obviously that's a huge hurdle.
Yeah, it is. And guess what? I didn't get the marks and I'm still here. So that's probably one thing for any aspiring lawyers, or I guess anyone in Year 12 who just thinks that Year 12 is the be all and end all. If you want to do something, there's always alternative ways you can sort of get in. So initially I started as a legal secretary. I just thought, okay, well, I won't be able to be a lawyer because I didn't get the marks. And I knew just financially I couldn't go to uni and not work full time. My financial situation just didn't allow for it. I didn't have parents who could support me. So I thought, okay, I'll become a legal secretary. And my boss told me about a diploma in law through the LPAB and Sydney Uni. And so you didn't actually need a particular UAI is what they called it then, or a Utah. I was able to enroll in that, and it was 100% law. So you did all law subjects, straight law, and slowly chipped away at that. So that was my backdoor way to becoming a lawyer.
Well, look, I didn't get the marks either, to be honest. I think I got in like third round of applications when they just had spaces left over, right?
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So how long did that end up taking you while you're working?
Yeah, so I was working as a legal secretary and then got a job with the DPP. And so I was working full time and just chipping away at the subjects. I was in my early 20s. So sometimes in summer, I'd do one subject so that I could live my life a bit. And then in winter, I'd do 2 subjects and work. So it probably took about 5 or 6 years all up, but I was just chipping away at it. I wasn't it seemed like a distant dream initially that I actually would become a lawyer and be admitted. So I wasn't in a rush, so to speak.
Yeah, it's amazing. When you're young, you think these timeframes are a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
But then as you get older, you realize that. Absolutely. We were talking to my kids about this last night when my son said, "Oh, Halloween felt like only a couple of months ago," and we said, well, as you get older, obviously, time feels like that. But it's really interesting when you're starting out and you're thinking 5 years is such a long time, or whatever that period of time is. I've actually just had another my kind of family member go through, and she has 3 kids and has done law part-time. I can't even count how long it's taken, but she's got through.
That's it. It's not about how long it takes. And you're still living your life in between. So it's really important to still not just put everything on hold to achieve this goal, I guess. You've still got to live and experience, the beauty of life in between all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you go to law school, you're juggling full-time work. What happened when you got out? Did you practice at the same place you were working at, or what was?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate that once I was admitted, I took part in the DPP's, PLT or graduate program, and then I slowly worked my way up into a more senior solicitor's role. I was about there, I think, for 12 years or 13 years in total. So it was amazing foundation in terms of the criminal law and advocacy and all of that.
So
really,
what prompted the move out of the DPP and to ultimately, set up your own firm?
Yeah. So a few years ago, my husband was came home one day and told me that he had testicular cancer, and so we had our son at the time, and I've actually had two little ones, and we were just shocked, and it kind of gave me, I guess, the kick up the butt that I needed. It's something that I thought I'd wanted to do, but perhaps had the self-doubt, and then when I realized life is so precious and short, it just gave me, the motivation I needed. So we were fortunate to fall pregnant with our third child during all of that. And so I decided I'll take 6 months mat leave, get paid out the rest of my long service and mat leave, and then I'll launch my own firm when I've got, 3 babies under 4. I thought that was a good idea, and it's worked out. So it obviously was.
It's amazing that it's so funny. Like, some people defer to caution and some people defer to the realization that, you've only got so much time in life, and if you're going to do it, you might as well do it. How did you feel like in that situation? Because it would have been a lot easier just to say, DPP,
Let's stay in a stable
I'm comfortable.
job.
Yeah,
absolutely. I just felt excited, and for maybe the first time in a long time, I just wasn't letting fear hold me back. I think A-type personalities are drawn to the law, so we want to know what the outcomes are, what the risks are, So for me, it was a very calculated risk, and I thought, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to fail. I'm going to get a job. I know that I can get a job. I've got lots of experience. It'll work out. Worst case, I can work at Coles if I'm not bringing in any clients. I was that committed that I knew that I'd be able to sort it out if it all went pear-shaped.
So how long did your husband's treatment end up taking?
Yeah, so we were really fortunate. He had an operation to remove one of his testicles, and then now he's under observation. So we're about 3 years in, and thankfully everything appears to be going well, and his health is really amazing. So, but I always tell this story because it's such an opportunity, because men often put the health things to the side and think, I'll chat to the doctor next time I see him. But he was so vigilant. The doctors were so surprised by how early it was caught. And if he hadn't have caught it that early, then, his situation could have been a lot more different. So, first signs of anything that's not right, you've got to get to your doctor, because our health is everything. It's amazing to have goals and dreams, but if we're not healthy, it doesn't matter. We're not going to be able to achieve them. So,
absolutely. Yeah, my dad recently went through prostate cancer, but he was in a similar situation in that they picked it up very early because he was quite vigilant, seeing the doctor every 6 months or 3 or 6 months just to get bloods and tests. And amazing GP, very small change, and they were able to pick things up, relatively quickly.
Incredible.
And, if he had been just someone sitting at home saying, I won't keep getting checked up on and I won't be vigilant about it.
And perhaps something which might be a bit embarrassing. I mean, people don't want to talk about their prostate and their balls. But it's so important. So I think you open that conversation up.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think we've got to be adult about talking about all of these things. It's like with, mental health. I mean, if you're sick, you're sick. And I've always thought about that in the context of, I'm very short-sighted and I wear glasses. Who cares? It's just like, that's the medical situation, and can talk about it and be open about it. Same with mental health, same with, whatever, ends up being the problem. And men, obviously, whether it's a macho thing or whether it's an ego thing, don't, think that they can. I mean, and you don't need to talk about it. You just need to do something about it.
Yeah, that's right. You don't even have to tell anyone. Just you go quietly off and get it in check. So I guess that kind of set us on the path to where I am now.
So you're going through all that, 3 kids and you start a law firm.
Yeah.
With how did it happen? What was the first 6 months like, and how did you bring work in the door?
Well, I launched 6 weeks before the first COVID pandemic. So I laughed because I thought I've started my business finally, 13 years in stable employment, and now we're going to have a pandemic. But it actually worked out really well in many respects because as a new business, I was also able to obtain some support from the government. So as a startup, that was actually a real gift. And it still allowed me an opportunity to, I guess, slowly build my business and then work out what my procedures were going to be. I had no idea. I wasn't coming with any clients because I was a prosecutor. I was starting fresh. I just thought, who's going to be my first client? Where are they going to come from? And so I just concentrated on one client at a time, give them my best. That was my first case in the beginning. So I gave it my all, got a great result. They then told somebody, and it just sort of grew really organically from there. Social media has also been incredible. I think some of us lawyers are reluctant to show all parts of ourselves. And so social media has, I guess, allowed me to come across as relatable, and people are maybe less nervous to approach me and say, hey, I've got a legal problem.
Yeah. So essentially, criminal law matters with a particular focus or pretty broad range of criminal law?
Yeah, so because of my background, any criminal law that kind of came in, obviously with the DPP, it was much more serious things I was dealing with. I had Supreme Court murders and lots of really serious matters with children. So it was kind of a welcome change for me to not be dealing in such serious things and have a drink driving or, much less serious charges. And then I was doing my master's at the time. And so I then decided to transfer my master's to family law. I was getting lots of inquiries about family law. I guess with my criminal law background, family violence and family law go quite hand in hand. So that's how then I moved into the family law space as well, which I've really enjoyed that aspect.
What do you think you bring skills-wise from and experience-wise from the DPP as a prosecutor into private practice on the other side?
Yeah, I guess I had a huge involvement with victims, and victims are in trauma much of the time, and it's really hard for them sometimes to understand the whole legal process and to absorb information. So it's often that you have to talk to them many times about, the same thing so that their brains can actually absorb it. It's not that they don't want to, it's literally that their brains are functioning in a different sort of space. So my private clients are exactly the same. Regardless of what's brought them there, they're in trauma or they might have a history of trauma, and I think they need that empathetic person to guide them through the process. I always say that I'm not just giving you the legal advice, I'm giving you that empathetic, safe space where you can, I guess, be yourself and know that you're not going to be judged and that we can work through it. So I think that's really made a difference.
So, and your own personal background, obviously been through a lot. How does that affect the way you approach things?
Well, I think maybe lawyers or, doctors, they're put on pedestals as if, they must be so smart or have everything together. But the reality is my upbringing could have led me to be one of my clients. I've got a brother in jail. My mother's got schizophrenia. My dad has suffered from alcoholism. I experienced family violence. So basically anybody who comes in my door, I can really relate because I've lived that. And so I think there's a lot to be said for that lived experience because I empathize with their situation, and I know how quickly somebody could be, in a position that they didn't plan. Obviously, we all plan to live our best life, but when you haven't had opportunities, it makes it a bigger struggle. And then if you have your own addiction or your own mental health, it's only more difficult. So sure, I had a difficult upbringing, but fortunately I haven't had addiction and I haven't had mental health. That's made it even more difficult for me. So, I just relate to them.
What do we need to be doing to support kids more like who you were and what you went through?
Yeah, well, look, I think this whole discussion about mental health just has to improve. If you have a broken leg, it gets fixed with the plaster. But for some reason, there seems to be all this shame and secrecy around mental health, anxiety and depression, and all of even more serious mental health conditions. We just need to make it a more open conversation where people feel comfortable to say, "Hey, I'm struggling." And that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk more about my story. It's not to feel sympathy. I've worked with a psychologist. I've sort of dealt with the trauma. I think a psychologist is amazing. It's that independent person. You can go and offload. You can bitch about everybody in your life, and you don't have to worry about it getting back to them. I just think making mental health more accessible, and often the drug addiction or is related to that self-medication. So much more resources needs to go into it, and just make it more accessible. I mean, the amount of clients who have been on lists for months on end and can't get any help, even though they want it, it just breaks your heart.
So, how do you manage it now from a mental health perspective? Because
Yeah,
there's not many. I mean, being a mum and juggling multiple kids is stressful enough, and then
yeah,
starting a business in the middle of a pandemic,
yeah.
you have an amazing attitude towards it. But what strategies have you got in place to help manage that now?
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in positive mindset. I love all the woo woo. So I'm a meditator. I love it. I'm making sure that I'm exercising. So I'm making that a priority. And then I'm just huge on boundaries. When I'm working, I give 110% to my clients. But when I'm not working, I need to give 110% to my family and also make sure that I'm filling up my cup. So I don't have work emails on my personal phone. I don't even have my work calendar on my personal phone. I try to finish at 4:30 in the afternoons, and I don't take calls unless it's something's major. And so I've just been really, I guess, strategic in putting boundaries in place, and not feeling guilty about it. Even with clients calling me, we have an option where they book in a call with me. I can't just take calls randomly throughout the day, because that kind of derails how much I can achieve in a day for all of my clients. And then that means when they speak to me, they get 110% of my attention. I'm not saying, "Oh, yeah, that sounds great," while I'm in the middle of typing an email. So I think that's really worked too. And clients sort of know how we operate, and they like that.
Yeah, brilliant. It's deliberate and it obviously works, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you start out, and the first client comes through the door, you do a great job, and slowly but surely word of mouth starts to grow your practice. But you
Yeah.
mentioned the social media aspects. What have you been doing, and what have you found that's worked for you?
So we're big on Instagram. I think initially I just started sharing funny memes that made me laugh. I guess there's so many aspects of my life. There's parenting, there's work. So I would just share things that just would make me laugh on the lighthearted. And I guess there was that juxtaposition between lawyers being so serious and then, oh, here's a lawyer who's sharing funny things. So I think maybe that caught people's interest. And then slowly, we've started to show a bit behind the scenes of what we do, and really just making it less scary. I mean, you go see your hairdresser or you can go see your lawyer. Like, it doesn't have to be a big, uncertainty or worried that they're going to judge you, or, you got to bare your soul when you go see a lawyer, especially a criminal or family lawyer. Like, I learned so much about my clients, stuff they might not have ever told anybody. So it's a relationship built on trust. And so I guess it's a way to build that trust. And then they might think in the future, "Oh, that's right. I saw that Instagram lawyer," which is what a lot of people have said when they call, which I find interesting.
Well, yeah, 100%. And if we talk about access to justice, and I've been speaking about this for a long time, but, at least 50% of people who have a legal problem never even speak to a lawyer about it.
I know.
And
It's like,
that's not really improving, right? And
yeah,
so, as a profession, we actually, if we are serious about access to justice, we need to talk about the reason why people aren't picking up the phone to lawyers. And one of the
yeah,
reasons why are various perceptions, whether it's cost, whether it's not really understanding what the lawyer can do for them, whether it is just, this professionalism versus the individual and the individual feeling a gap, a communication gap. All of these things are incredibly important because, as you know, especially in criminal law and family law issues, the longer you wait, the worse off you are a lot of the time. Yeah.
The amount of times I think, I wish you had called me earlier. But yeah, it's just fascinating to me. And also, I mean, I'm 38 years old. I want to see a lawyer who's, maybe around my age or understands my generation. And so that's kind of maybe filling that gap. Somebody who kind of looks like you, talks like you, and has a similar outlook on life. I think that then builds that trust as well.
So adding family law, and I guess the question that a lot of people have going out on their own is just continuing learning and continuing and how to do it. How have you tackled that? And, again, the first bit of work that came through, what's going through your head? How confident were you?
Yeah, well, doing my master's definitely helped because, one, I had all those resources, and then there were other students and things like that. And then building a network of other lawyers around me. So we have an incredibly tight little group of particularly female lawyers on the Central Coast who either newly admitted, been in law for ages, or have gone out on their own. And we kind of all really rely on each other to say, hey, I've got this question about this area of law. And we really do, I guess, help each other out in that respect. And then I think you've just got to have trust in yourself. I mean, I'd been a lawyer already for nearly a decade. I know how to read case law. I know how to apply the law. I know how to be an advocate. It's just a matter of getting in there and doing it, but then not taking on things which are above you at that stage you're at. So really assessing it and thinking, okay, is this something that I can do, or is it above, where I'm at? And then only taking on work that you can do the best job for your client. But family law is very advocacy based as well. You're just doing it in an affidavit form as well as in court. So that criminal law foundation actually was quite useful. And when people are putting things in affidavits, things that are backed by evidence are much more persuasive. So coming from your only job as a prosecutor really is to determine what the evidence is and if you can reach the threshold. I was surprised how much it interconnected.
Amazing. And so you practice in the pointiest of pointy ends of law for the general community in the grand scheme of things.
The fun ones.
Yeah. And we spoke about access to justice, but I guess back on that point, what do you think we can be doing better, whether it's, the courts or as lawyers, to, improve the process?
Yeah, I think one, we need to be more relatable. So it doesn't mean you've got to show all aspects of your life and all, who you are, but what you feel comfortable with, showing that there's not that divide between us and them. All the lawyers I know wanted to help people. So that's what we're there to do. So to me, it's sad that there are these negative connotations around lawyers and, we're money hungry and all those different things, because most of us just want to help people. Yeah. But I think one of the barriers is how we do our fees. And I've certainly been trying to move to a fixed fee model 100%. We do it for criminal law because it's much more predictable. It's difficult with the way the family law system is set up to try to give clients that price certainty. So I think that's something maybe with the new family law court merger that took place on the 1st of September that we might now be able to move to. There's a bit more of a clearer pathway. And so what I'm going to hope to do is to have fixed fees. So I can say to a client, this is how much it costs. If you call me or email me and I ask you, how was your weekend? How are the kids? It's not that I'm trying to earn more money so that my bill looks bigger. It's because I'm just genuinely interested in having that relationship with them so they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So fees is a big issue. When you go anywhere and you're not sure how much it's going to cost, you feel nervous.
Yeah.
Sort of, oh God, I'm really enjoying this dinner, but how much is it really going to cost me? Then I decide if I enjoyed it or not. So
absolutely. But it's actually, that's 100% the case. But how have you dealt with, I guess, making those decisions? Because it's hard. Pricing is not straightforward. How have you And I was talking to a friend actually the other night who, is just a partner. And we were just talking about like how you choose, like, and your price, how you choose, that price. How have you gone about that? And are there any people that you've lent on or anything that you've learned that's helped you with it?
Yeah, well, before I was launching, it was my biggest stress. I was like, what's my hourly rate going to be? Because I'd come from government, so I didn't even know really. What do you base it on? I'd Google it. There's no real information. I was like, this is what clients must feel like when they Google, how much does a family lawyer cost? So I just picked a number. And then I quickly realized that it's not necessarily how long it takes me to do something. You're paying for my experience. So you could probably go and do it yourself, but do you have the experience to do it? So if, you're paying for a lawyer who's got a decade of experience, then that's kind of what my hourly rate is based on. And then when we were working out the fixed fees for, say, a plea of guilty versus a hearing, I knew how much roughly time goes into it. And then looking at the market as to what others were also charging. So we're probably a mid-range firm. We're not the lower end of town, and we're certainly not the most expensive. So we're somewhere in the middle. And I imagine as, the practice grows and the reputation grows, then naturally, the pricing could go up or down. It would really depend. If our practices and procedures get better, it might go down because it's taking us less time. So, it's a complicated thing. And women, particularly, we undervalue ourselves. And initially I was quick to offer discounts. I thought, oh, yes, sure, I'll do that for you for this much. But now I've got my price. I know my worth. Not everyone can afford it. That's okay. If they can't, I've got lots of people who I happily refer on, because I do have colleagues who might do it for that price. And I'm happy to see them succeed. So,
well, that's the best attitude.
That's right.
It's hard to be there. I tell you, I mean, I've found that, starting a new business as well, sometimes you just want the work, right?
Yeah.
And so, but the fastest way to go broke is through mates rates and discounting.
100%. And the jobs where you just get that feeling it's like not right, you've already had to give a discount, like you're not going to enjoy those jobs, and then you're probably not going to get the best outcome for the client. They're not going to go tell someone else to use you. So it's just not worth it.
Well, price and client experience is linked, right? Because you've got to be happy doing the work.
You want to be like, you don't want to be resentful, like, oh, I'm doing this and actually losing money, but hey, I got a client.
Well, on that point, I guess this is a great point about you go out on your own and you set your own business up. What else have you learned? And I guess what have you struggled with, and what has surprised you on that business front side?
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd love being on my own, doing my own thing. I didn't quite realize how much I love the social aspect of being part of a team and the camaraderie from the DPP. So one of the, I guess looking back fairly quickly, I got an employee. Now, looking back, it seems a bit crazy because that's, an outlay and all of that added stress, but it actually was the best thing I did, because then I felt like it was the team, dealing with this client or, responding to this letter. It was less personal. It's now Coastal lawyers receiving that letter rather than me personally receiving the criticism, or, it's less personal. And that was really important for me to sort of, I guess, another boundary. So that was one of the best things I did in a way. And I know a lot of people are scared, how do I bring on someone and then you've got their sort of career in your hands? But that's really helped growing a team.
Well, a lot of it, when you start out, that's part of the fun, right? Because you can be an employee somewhere else, but actually this, enjoying that process, and whether it's hiring people or whether it's like the strategy on your social media or your pricing or just accounts or all the myriad of different things that you have to do when you start a practice that you never had to do as an employee.
IT. I mean, I didn't realize I had IT on speed dial because every week something would go wrong and someone would fix it. Then when I was on my own, I was like, oh, printers and Office 365 and all of that. It's not my thing. I'm not good at it. So then I started to outsource things like that too, because you can't do all of the things. There's not enough time in the day. So I've really realized, the value of the dollar and paying somebody who that's their genius, and then you can just stay in your lane in a way. So
yeah, absolutely. So what does the future hold? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to growing Coastal Lawyers. We've moved to new offices. I've got 3 staff now, so that's really exciting. And I'm really just wanting to create a happy workplace that supports working parents, and then just providing, good old-fashioned legal advice to the Central Coast community. And I hope that we can be the law firm that, they come to, and then their kids eventually come to. And that's what I love about the Central Coast, is that sense of community. And so it's nice to just be a part of that and hopefully grow.
I think that community aspect is massively underrated, and we don't talk about it enough. But actually, friends of mine, whether they're in the centre of Sydney or they're in Ipswich in Queensland, or they're in Townsville or Mackay or Central Coast, the ones who do really well engage locally and talk about it locally and can stand out locally, because you are your unique thing in the local community.
That's right. Yeah. So, I think it's exciting things ahead.
Brilliant. Well, Kristal, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'd love to hear your story, and I just can't wait to keep watching it unfold, especially on Instagram.
Yes, Coastal Lawyers. Everyone can jump on and follow the funny memes.
Do it. All right. Thanks very much. Thanks so much for listening to the Beyond Billables podcast. If you didn't know, we're actually a brand and marketing agency that helps law firms, legal tech startups, and legal services businesses around the world. Our focus is helping our clients build valuable long-term brands, and we do that through brand strategy, through branding and design, website builds, social media, and content projects. No matter where you are in the world, we've worked with firms for over 15 years in multiple jurisdictions, and we're always happy to chat. If you want to chat about a project, drop me an email at michael@beyondbillables.com or connect on social media. Thanks so much for listening to the show.